This is the podcast overview for week 13. We will be covering chapter 14, Psychological Disorders. Here is the to-do list. You're going to be reading through chapter 14, as well as reading HAWK 8.3, which is titled Learning to be Depressed. And both those readings, along with the videos, are going to be what informs your discussion posts for the week. So let's take a look here. You can get a nice rundown and overview of the chapter by clicking here, where I explain each one of these objectives for you. Your slides for the chapter here, and then here's where your videos start. Now this is a big week. There's a lot of different videos, but they're all very short. The psychological disorders chapter is a big one. If you take this as a class, it would be abnormal psychology. So we could spend a whole semester just covering the various disorders. Unfortunately, in intro psych, we're just going to get a broad overview of some of the major categories of disorder. So there's going to be a lot of things that we aren't able to cover. However, I think that these videos give you a nice sampling of what the different categories of disorders are, symptoms, and even gets a little bit into treatment, although we'll spend more time on treatment next week. So this will give you a good sampling here. I've got just a brief overview of psychological disorders here, and it also discusses the guidelines for how we classify disorders by the DSM, and this is typically what all clinicians, psychiatrists, and psychologists use. It's a diagnostic and statistical manual of all disorders and how they classify them. So which ones clump together. Usually we look at symptomology of the disorders and how they manifest, and that's how we tend to classify them. But it also talks about prevalence and different statistics in terms of rates by which people are affected, demographics and things like that. So this will give you a nice overview, and then we're going to dive into some of the specifics. So we'll first cover OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and other anxiety disorders. So OCD is an anxiety disorder. It falls in that category, but so do others like panic disorder, and different phobias fall under anxiety disorder. So that'll classify all of those. And then I have a little clip of Howie Mandel, who actually has OCD, talking about living with OCD and what that's like for him on a day-to-day basis. Then we have our depressive and bipolar disorders. These are categorized into the same class of disorder, but it'll break it down into the various types of depressive disorder. It goes everything from a low-grade dysthymic disorder to major depressive disorder, and then your bipolar disorders. And then this, just additionally, I love because it outlines bipolar disorder by the symptoms and how people experience those symptoms, typically when, what to look out for. And then we'll get into personality disorders. There is a lot here, so this doesn't by any means cover all of it, but it'll touch on some big ones and give you a nice overview. In particular, I've put some extra videos about BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and also antisocial personality disorder, which tend to be the more prevalent of the personality disorders, those two. And then our last class of disorders is schizophrenia and dissociative disorders, where you'll get to see what the symptoms are there and who those disorders affect. So like I said, there's a lot of videos to work through, so I would really recommend spending time this week on these. Watch them again if you need to, but don't race through these, and definitely don't attempt to do the discussion board posting until you've read the material and watched the videos, because it will help a lot for that discussion. And so for the discussion, you are integrating both the Hawk reading and your text. And then, of course, the videos can help to inform you as well. But you're going to be talking a little bit more about depression in this post. So, number one, according to Seligman and Meyer, why is control in one's life so important to one's emotional well-being? How can people gain more control over their situations and circumstances, and what does it mean when they do so? How does this promote overall well-being and health for that? And when people find themselves in situations where they feel hopeless, helpless, out of control, like they have no control, we tend to see more depression. And so why is that? What leads to that? And then two, how has this research by Seligman and Meyer contributed to the study of depression and in understanding its etiology? So Seligman and Meyer originally did their research with dogs, looking at situations where they could or could not escape being shocked. And they soon realized that the dogs would give up when they felt like they had no control and nothing they could do mattered. They would just give up and they would stop trying. And then even when they were given control and they actually had the ability to stop the shocks, they wouldn't even attempt it or try. So you're going to be unpackaging that research and then saying, how does this map onto human behavior? Because humans are the same. We do the same thing, whether it be our jobs or our relationships. When we do not have a sense of control and we do not find ways to have control, it can be the etiology, the very etiology of depression, or the stemming of depression, where one feels like they are helpless to do anything about their situation. And so then three, what psychological perspective would Seligman and Meyer come from in their approach to depression? So this is going to require you to kind of go back to chapter 1, where we looked at the different approaches that people take, psychologists take, to viewing behavior. We have everything from evolutionary perspective to cognitive perspective, behavioral, and so where would Seligman and Meyer fit in that dynamic? Where might we see their research coming from? And what might be some ways that an individual could have more of a sense of control when they're in a state of depression? What are some things that the research has shown can help a person to gain control of situations that they feel they have none? So that'll form the basis of your discussion this week. Just remember to integrate in those sources and make sure you're citing them correctly in APA format. And then you just have a quiz, which is on chapter 14. Again, it's 10 multiple choice questions with 1 point each, and that will finish up the week. So as you're working through this material, please let me know if you have questions, if you'd like to talk over any concepts. I'm available for you.